I'm going to take Texas A&M too. Kyle Field, night game. I think Texas A&M gets the job done. They're #1 in the Big 12 against the run. They do a really good job on defense. And Nebraska, they can't pass the football. All they do is run. Rex Burkhead, Roy Hillou Jr., Taylor Martinez, all of those guys, good players. They can run the ball effectively. But I think in the long run, Texas A&M utilizes Nebraska's one-dimensional offense and forces some turnovers. Taylor Martinez, 20-3 win over Kansas last week. A good win, but he wasn't all that impressive. And, we saw Cody Green against Iowa State. He made enough plays to keep Nebraska in that game. Nebraska had to use Rex Burkhead and the Wildcat to win that football game. So I think Texas A&M with the momentum, Ryan Tannehill, the quarterback, 10 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions since he came in the second quarter. That Kansas game, been playing ever since. I think he gets the job done. A big win for A&M at home.
Jake.
Texas A&M has been playing extremely well since the benching of Gerard Johnson, which is a big surprise because he threw for 30 touchdowns last year. We expected big things from him coming into this season, but Ryan Tannehill, in his first career start, set a school record for passing yards. However, I think I am going to take Nebraska in this game. They did not look that impressive offensively against Kansas, but they did hold Kansas to 87 yards. Granted, Kansas has probably the worst defense or offense in the Big 12, but when you hold any team to just 87 yards of total offense in the game, that's very impressive. Nebraska has the #1 scoring defense, #1 total defense in the Big 12. I think they run the ball for enough points and hold Texas A&M, contain them with that great defense of theirs. I think they go to Texas A&M and win.
Number 16, Virginia Tech, who's been just red hot ever since losing the first 2 games of the year, has to travel to Miami to take on the Hurricanes, who are now ranked 24th back in the rankings this week. Jake, who do you have?
I just have a real tough time taking Miami in big games. Last year they came up short in some of their biggest games. It was because they had a young team last year. We thought maybe with a more veteran team they'd win those big games this year, but they haven't. Virginia Tech's on a roll. They've won 8 straight games so far. Tyrod Taylor's the leading passing efficiency quarterback in the ACC. They can clinch the Coastal Division with a win this week. I think they do that. They take down Miami.
Yeah, speaking of quarterbacks, Ja'Cory Harris, it looks like he'll practice this week, according to Randy Shannon. But I think ultimately Stephen Morris, the backup freshman quarterback, is going to start again. I think Virginia Tech's experience and veteran leadership on both sides of the football gets the job done. I think this will be a closer game than maybe some people expect because Miami's defense, 3rd in the country against the pass. They do a really good job defending quarterbacks that can throw the ball well. But I think Virginia Tech gets the job done. I think they're able to run the ball effectively with Darren Evans and Tyrod Taylor, that dual threat in the backfield.
Iowa State battling for bowl eligibility. Number 15, Missouri's coming into Ames. Are these Cyclones going to go to a bowl game, Mike?
No, I don't think so. Iowa State, I talked about this earlier in the show, they give up 30 points a game. Paul Rhodes, I commend him for getting to 5 wins this season. I think that's more than a lot of people thought. You look at a lot of pundits picked them dead last, picked them maybe win 2 or 3 games all season long, but they've been able to, they can hang their hat on the Texas win this season, even though Texas is not a great football team, but it's a good win for them nonetheless, and they competed hard with Nebraska. But I just think with Austin Arnaud being injured and out for this football game, I just don't think the freshman Jerome Tiller is going to be able to do enough for them to get the win. And it's too bad because Alexander Robinson, the running back there, he's the best player on that football team, and I'd like to see him be able to get a win on Senior Day. But I think Blaine Gabbert and that offense for Missouri, who played much better this past week against Kansas State, does enough to get it done.
Jake, Missouri's lost their last 2 games on the road, but do they go into Jack Trice, one of the most hostile environments in the Big 12, and get a win?
Well, when the season started, we were talking that Paul Rhodes, if he could somehow get this Iowa State team to a bowl game, he might be Coach of the Year in the Big 12. It looked like he was almost going to get there against Colorado. They had it going. They beat Texas earlier this year. They had Nebraska on the ropes. They kind of went all in with that 2-point conversion call in overtime. And when that pass fell down, I think all of Iowa State's bowl hopes kind of fell with that. I saw a team that was very demoralized last week. I think Missouri goes into Iowa State behind Blaine Gabbert, behind one of the better defenses in the Big 12. I think they pull out a win against Iowa State.
Yeah, by the way, I was just kidding about the whole thing about Jack Trice being hostile atmosphere. Yeah, Missouri's going to go. They're going to get the win. Iowa State still will be emotionally spent from the Nebraska loss and from the Colorado loss. I don't see him bouncing back in this one. But one interesting thing to note is, though, that though Missouri did put a pretty good beating on K-State last week, K-State had a big turnover problem. I believe that 4 turnovers in that game. It'll be interesting to see if Iowa State will turn over the ball or not and see if that helps out Missouri. Final game we'll talk about this week, number 9 Ohio State travels to Kinnick Stadium to take on number 20 Iowa. It's unfortunate that we lost the week before because Kirk Herbstreit kind of spilled the beans while he was calling the Ohio State-Penn State game and said that, well, now, geez, with Iowa losing Northwestern, that puts game day up in the air now. So game day would have been here. Just so disappointing. But it is senior day. Iowa has won 16 of the last 20 senior day games, but yet Iowa has only beaten Ohio State one time since Hayden Fry took the Hawks into Columbus and beat them in 1991. Mike, do the Hawks get the win this week versus the Buckeyes?
I'll tell you what, I think Ohio State is such a balanced football team with Terrell Pryor at quarterback. He's got 22 touchdown passes this season. I think the key for Iowa is to force him out of his comfort zone. And that sounds counterintuitive when you look at a quarterback like Terrell Pryor because he can use his legs and he can be effective outside the pocket, but he makes his mistakes when he's uncomfortable in the pocket. That's where he's thrown his 8 interceptions this season. And then you look at the wide receivers. He's got Dane Sanzenbacher and DeVere Posey, both very talented players. It's going to be interesting to see how our cornerbacks and safeties match up with those guys, see if they can make a difference. Last year we did a pretty good job in coverage against their wide receivers, but running the ball with Daniel Herron and Brandon Sane was a big issue for us last year. Ohio State rushes for 222 yards a game. Ultimately, I think Iowa comes out with a lot of emotion, passion, and fire, but I think Ohio State comes into Kinnick Stadium and gets the win. I think we're going to see a score similar to last year. I'm going to go with 24-21. I think Iowa, a really close, hard-fought game, but Ohio State gets it done in the fourth quarter. Iowa has, in some of these close games, has been unable to stop the opposing teams late in the fourth quarter to hold on for a win. I think Ohio State comes into Kinnick and wins on senior day.
Jake.
Well, Iowa definitely has a team capable of beating Ohio State. We have a very balanced offense. Ricky Stanzi still ranks top in the Big Ten in passing efficiency. Adam Robinson still averaging over 100 yards a game on the ground. You talk about our defense, still ranked in the top 15 in the country in scoring and total defense. Still one of the better defenses in the Big Ten. We have not played very well these past 2 weeks, but I think we will play a lot better this week against Ohio State. With that said, you look at where Ohio State ranks in some different statistical areas in the Big Ten. They have the Big Ten's #1 scoring offense. They have the Big Ten's #1 scoring defense. They have the Big Ten's #1 rushing defense. They have the Big Ten's #1 passing defense and #1 total defense in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State, they play a very good game at Kinnick. This is going to be an even matched game, but I think Ohio State just is too good this year for Iowa.
I think I need to give you guys a 1-game or a 1-show suspension for picking the Buckeyes. The Hawkeyes have lost 2 games this year prior to the Northwestern game. And what happened after both of those games? Iowa Hawkeyes won big in Kinnick Stadium, outscoring the 2 opponents by a score of 82-6. One of those opponents was the unbeaten 5th-ranked Michigan State Spartans. Iowa has Ohio State just where they want them. Everybody's going to be picking Ohio State. Vegas is probably going to pick Ohio State. This is exactly where Iowa wants to be. Iowa relishes the underdog role, and they will find a way to beat Ohio State. I think the Hawkeyes win 24-20 inside Kinnick Stadium, get the big win, and then everybody's going to come back onto the Iowa bandwagon, just like they did after we lost to Wisconsin, just like they did after we lost to Arizona. Iowa will set themselves up for a 9-3 finish to the regular season and get into a very respectable bowl where they'll play an SEC opponent on New Year's Day. And if you can't make it to the Iowa game, during the same time, the Heelan Crusaders from Sioux City, Iowa, they're at state right now. They had a very thrilling 42-35 win versus West Delaware. Go on up to the Unidome and watch them Saturday afternoon if you can't get a ticket inside Kinnick Stadium to watch the Hawkeyes put a hurting on Ohio State. So go on up to the Unidome this weekend. Watch them.
Yeah, speaking of Sioux City Heelan, Clint Sargent of South Dakota State had a nice performance against the Hawkeyes in basketball.
Yeah, Clint Sargent, 16 points, had that nice slam dunk. He had an air ball. Everybody's chanting air ball, so what's he do? Goes up, puts a 3 ball in, silences the meager student section at Carver Hawkeye Arena, and then Zach McCabe, a Sioux City Heelan product, too. There's a couple other ones we want to talk about, but McCabe and Clint Sargent make me very proud to be a Heelan Crusader, and hopefully they'll take state again. If you have any comments, uioist@gmail.com is our email address. For Mike Rabin, Jake Burgers, I'm Alex Salzma. Good night. Go Hawks.
I'm pretty sure we're going to lose.
I don't think it's definite that we're going to lose.
I think we'll win.